The morning started like any other Tuesday in Cedar Valley, Wyoming. Tom Mitchell woke up at 5:30 in the morning, just like he did every day. He was a cattle rancher and his work started early. The sun was not up yet, and the sky was still dark with small stars shining above his ranch. Tom rolled over in bed and looked at his wife, Sarah. She was still sleeping, her brown hair spread across the white pillow. She looked peaceful. Tom smiled. They had been married for 12 years now, and he still felt lucky every single day. He got out of bed quietly, trying not to wake her. He pulled on his old jeans and a flannel shirt. The house was cold in the morning, so he grabbed his jacket from the chair. As he walked past the bedroom door, he heard Sarah stir. "Tom?" Her sleepy voice called out. "Go back to sleep, honey." Tom whispered. "It's early. What time is it?" Sarah asked, sitting up and rubbing her eyes. 5:30. "You don't need to get up yet. Your first class isn't until 9, Tom said. Sarah was a music teacher at Cedar Valley Elementary School. She taught piano and singing to children from kindergarten through 5th grade. The kids loved her. She made learning music fun. She would sing silly songs with them and let them bang on drums and shake tambourines. But her favorite thing to teach was piano. "I know. But I want to make you breakfast before you go out to the fields," Sarah said, throwing back the covers. "You don't have to do that," Tom said, but he was smiling. This was their routine. Sarah always insisted on making him breakfast, even though he told her she should sleep more. They walked to the kitchen together. Tom made coffee while Sarah pulled eggs and bacon from the refrigerator. The kitchen was small but cozy. There were red curtains on the windows and pictures of their families on the walls. Through the window, Tom could see the first light of dawn starting to show on the horizon. "What are you doing today?" Tom asked as he poured coffee into 2 mugs. "Normal Tuesday stuff," Sarah said as she cracked eggs into a pan. "I have classes all morning. Then I have piano lessons after school. 4 students today. Little Emma is finally getting the hang of Mary Had a Little Lamb. She's so proud of herself." Tom chuckled. "You love those kids." "I really do," Sarah said, smiling as she flipped the bacon. "Oh, and I need to stop by the music store in town. We need more sheet music for the spring recital." "That's still months away," Tom said. "I like to plan ahead," Sarah replied. "You know me." They ate breakfast together as the sun came up. Tom told her about the new calves that were born last week. Sarah told him about the song she was teaching the 2nd graders. It was a simple, ordinary conversation, the kind they had every day. Tom would remember this breakfast later. He would remember every single detail. At 7:30, Sarah kissed Tom goodbye at the front door. She was wearing a blue dress and her favorite cardigan. Her bag was full of music books and papers. "Be careful driving," Tom said. "He always said this, I will," Sarah always replied. "I love you." "I love you too," Tom said. He watched her walk to her car, a silver Honda that was 10 years old but still ran perfectly. She waved at him before she got in. Tom waved back. Then she drove down the long driveway, her car kicking up a little dust on the gravel road. Tom went back inside to get his work boots. He had a full day ahead. Some fences needed fixing on the north pasture, and he wanted to check on the cattle in the east field. He pulled on his boots and grabbed his hat. That was when his phone rang. Tom looked at the screen. It was a number he didn't recognize. A local number, but not one saved in his phone. "Hello?" he answered. "Is this Tom Mitchell?" a woman's voice asked. She sounded serious, professional. "Yes, this is Tom," he said. "Mr. Mitchell, this is Karen Rodriguez from Cedar Valley Hospital. I'm calling about your wife, Sarah Mitchell." Tom's heart stopped. The room seemed to tilt. What happened? Is she okay?" "Mr. Mitchell, there's been an accident. Your wife was brought to the emergency room about 20 minutes ago. You need to come to the hospital right away." "What kind of accident? Is she hurt? Is she alive?" Tom's voice was rising. His hands were shaking. "She's alive, Mr. Mitchell, but you need to come now. The doctors will explain everything when you get here." Tom didn't remember hanging up the phone. He didn't remember grabbing his truck keys or locking the front door. He just ran. He ran to his truck, jumped in, and started the engine. His hands were shaking so bad he could barely grip the steering wheel. The hospital was 20 miles away in town. Tom drove faster than he ever had before. His truck roared down the country roads. His mind was racing. What happened? Was it a car accident? How bad was she hurt? Please, God, let her be okay. The 20-minute drive felt like hours. Tom's knuckles were white from gripping the steering wheel so tight. He kept seeing Sarah's face in his mind. Her smile at breakfast, the way she waved at him from her car. That was just an hour ago. How could everything change so fast? Finally, he saw the hospital. It was a small building, only 2 stories tall. Cedar Valley was a small town, and this was their only hospital. Tom parked badly, taking up 2 spaces, but he didn't care. He ran inside. The emergency room was busy. There were people sitting in chairs, waiting. A baby was crying somewhere. The smell of antiseptic filled the air. Tom ran to the front desk. "My wife," he said out of breath. "Sarah Mitchell. They called me. Where is she?" The nurse at the desk looked at her computer. "Mr. Mitchell?" "Yes, let me get the doctor for you. Please wait here." "I want to see my wife," Tom said firmly. "The doctor needs to talk to you first." "Please, sir, just wait one moment," Tom wanted to argue. But a door opened and a man in a white coat walked out. He was young, maybe in his 30s, with dark hair and tired eyes. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm Dr. Patel. Please come with me." Tom followed the doctor through the door and into a small private room. There were 2 chairs and a box of tissues on a table. Tom didn't like this room. It looked like the kind of room where doctors gave bad news. "Where is Sarah?" "What happened?" Tom demanded. Dr. Patel gestured to a chair. "Please sit down." "I don't want to sit down. I want to see my wife." "Mr. Mitchell, please, sit down. I need to explain the situation." Reluctantly, Tom sat. His leg was bouncing nervously. His heart was pounding. Dr. Patel sat across from him. "Your wife was in a car accident this morning at approximately 7:45. A delivery truck ran a red light at the intersection of Main Street and 5th Avenue. The truck hit the driver's side of your wife's vehicle. The impact caused her car to spin and hit a telephone pole." Tom felt like he couldn't breathe. "Is she okay?" "She's alive," Dr. Patel said carefully. "But she's seriously injured. She has a traumatic brain injury. We've done a CT scan and there's swelling in her brain. She also has 3 broken ribs, a fractured left arm, and various cuts and bruises." "Can I see her?" Tom asked. Tears were starting to form in his eyes. "She's unconscious right now, Mr. Mitchell. She's in a coma." The word hit Tom like a punch to the stomach. "A coma?" "Yes, the brain injury caused significant trauma. Her brain is swelling and her body has shut down to protect itself. We're monitoring her very closely. We've given her medication to reduce the swelling." "When will she wake up?" Tom asked. Dr. Patel's expression was sympathetic but serious. "I can't answer that. Some coma patients wake up in hours. Some take days. Some take weeks. And some," he paused, "we just don't know. But she will wake up, right?" Tom's voice broke. "We're doing everything we can. The next 72 hours are critical. We need to see if the swelling goes down. Right now she's stable, but we need to watch her very carefully." Tom put his head in his hands. This couldn't be happening. Just this morning, Sarah was making him breakfast. She was smiling. She was talking about her students and the spring recital. How could she be in a coma? "Can I see her?" Tom asked again, looking up at the doctor. "Yes, follow me." Dr. Patel led Tom through the emergency room, down a hallway, and into the intensive care unit. They stopped in front of a room with glass walls. Tom could see inside. Sarah was lying in a hospital bed. She looked so small. There were tubes and wires everywhere. A tube in her mouth to help her breathe. An IV in her arm. Machines beeping and showing numbers that Tom didn't understand. Her head was bandaged. Her left arm was in a cast. Tom's legs felt weak. He had to hold onto the doorframe. "You can go in," Dr. Patel said gently. "Talk to her. Some studies suggest that coma patients can hear their loved ones." Tom walked into the room slowly. Each step felt heavy. He pulled a chair close to Sarah's bed and sat down. He took her right hand in his. It felt cold. "Sarah," he whispered. "Honey, it's me. It's Tom, I'm here. I'm right here." She didn't move. The only sound was the beeping of the machines. Tom started to cry. Big, heavy tears rolled down his face. He held Sarah's hand and cried. "Please wake up," he begged. "Please, I need you. Please don't leave me." But Sarah didn't respond. She just lay there still and silent. The hours passed slowly. Tom sat by Sarah's bed, holding her hand. Nurses came in and out, checking the machines, writing notes on charts. They were kind to Tom. They brought him coffee and a sandwich, though he couldn't eat. Dr. Patel came back in the evening. "Mr. Mitchell, you should go home and get some rest." "I'm not leaving her," Tom said firmly. "You've been here for 12 hours. You need to eat and sleep. I said I'm not leaving. Dr. Patel nodded. I understand. There's a cot in the family waiting room. I'll have a nurse bring you a pillow and blanket. Tom didn't sleep that night. He dozed in the chair next to Sarah's bed, still holding her hand. Every time a machine beeped differently, he woke up, alert and scared. But Sarah remained the same, still, silent, unconscious. The next day was Wednesday, then Thursday, then Friday. Tom barely left Sarah's side. His ranch manager, Pete, called to check on him and to tell him not to worry about the ranch. Pete would handle everything. Tom's mother came to the hospital. Sarah's parents drove up from Colorado. They all took turns sitting with Sarah, talking to her, hoping she could hear them. But she didn't wake up. 1 week passed, then 2 weeks, then 3. Dr. Patel brought in a neurologist, a brain specialist, to examine Sarah. His name was Dr. Harrison. He was older, with gray hair and glasses. He did tests, looked at scans, and asked Tom lots of questions. After 3 weeks, on a Monday morning, Dr. Harrison sat down with Tom in that small room with the chairs and tissues. Mr. Mitchell, I've reviewed all of Sarah's scans and test results. The swelling in her brain has gone down significantly. That's good news. So she'll wake up soon? Tom asked hopefully. We believe she will regain consciousness, but I need to prepare you for what might happen when she does. Tom felt fear grip his heart. What do you mean? Dr. Harrison pulled out a scan and pointed to an area of Sarah's brain. The injury caused significant damage to the left hemisphere of her brain, specifically to areas called Broca's area and Wernicke's area. These are the parts of the brain that control language. I don't understand, Tom said. When Sarah wakes up, she may not be able to speak. She may not be able to write. She may not be able to communicate using words at all. Tom stared at the doctor. What? It's called aphasia. Expressive aphasia, to be specific. Her brain may understand language perfectly. She'll understand everything you say to her, but she may not be able to form words or sentences in response. The pathways that allow her to produce language may be damaged. But she's a music teacher, Tom said, as if this fact alone could change the diagnosis. She talks to kids all day. She sings. She can't. She has to be able to talk. Dr. Harrison's expression was sympathetic. I know this is difficult to hear. We won't know the full extent of the damage until she wakes up. There's a chance she could regain some language function with therapy. But Mr. Mitchell, you need to be prepared for the possibility that your wife may never speak again. Tom felt like the floor had disappeared beneath him. Sarah, who sang every day, who chatted with her students, who told him stories over breakfast, who laughed and joked and filled their home with words and music, might never speak again. No, Tom said, shaking his head. No, that can't be right. I'm sorry, Dr. Harrison said. But it's important that you understand what we might be dealing with. That night, Tom sat by Sarah's bed and cried again. He held her hand and talked to her, even though she couldn't hear him. I don't care if you can never talk again, he whispered. I just need you to wake up. Please, Sarah, please wake up. I don't care about anything else. Just wake up. 2 days later, on a Wednesday morning, exactly 3 weeks and 2 days after the accident, Sarah's eyes opened. Tom was dozing in his chair when a nurse gently shook his shoulder. Mr. Mitchell, she's awake. Tom's eyes flew open. He looked at Sarah's face. Her eyes were open. They were moving, looking around the room, confused and scared. Sarah! Tom jumped up and leaned over her. Sarah, honey, I'm here. You're okay. You're in the hospital, but you're okay. Sarah's eyes found his face. Tom saw recognition there. She knew him. She tried to move, but the tubes held her in place. She looked panicked. It's okay, Tom said, stroking her hair. Don't try to move. You were in an accident, but you're going to be okay. Sarah's mouth opened. She tried to speak. Tom could see her struggling, her lips forming shapes, but no words came out. Just a frustrated sound, almost like a moan. She tried again, and again. Her eyes filled with tears as she realized she couldn't speak. Tom's heart broke as he watched his wife's frustration and fear. Dr. Harrison had been right. It's okay, Tom said, though his own voice was breaking. Don't worry about talking right now. You just woke up. The doctor said this might happen. It's okay. We'll figure it out. But Sarah's tears kept falling. She kept trying to speak, and nothing came out except sounds that weren't words. The woman who had filled Tom's life with music and laughter had woken up, but her voice was gone. Sarah stayed in the hospital for 6 more weeks after she woke up from the coma. Those weeks were hard for both her and Tom. Every day brought new challenges and new heartbreaks. The first few days, Sarah was confused. She didn't understand why she was in the hospital. She didn't remember the accident at all. The doctors said this was normal. Sometimes people don't remember traumatic events. Tom had to explain what happened over and over again. Each time, he watched Sarah's eyes fill with tears as she realized she had been in a coma for 3 weeks. Each time, she tried to speak and couldn't. Each time, the frustration on her face broke Tom's heart a little more. The nurses removed the breathing tube after 2 days. They thought maybe Sarah would be able to talk once the tube was out. Tom hoped so too, but when the tube came out and Sarah opened her mouth to speak, the same thing happened. She could make sounds but not words, just frustrated noises that didn't mean anything. Dr. Harrison came to see Sarah every day. He did tests. He asked her to follow simple commands. "Sarah, can you lift your right hand?" She could. "Can you wiggle your toes?" She could. "Can you point to the door?" She could. Her brain is functioning well in most areas, Dr. Harrison explained to Tom. She understands language perfectly. She knows what we're saying. But the part of her brain that produces speech is damaged. "Will it get better?" Tom asked. "Maybe," Dr. Harrison said. "We're going to start speech therapy right away. Sometimes the brain can rewire itself. It finds new pathways. But Tom, I have to be honest with you. The damage is severe. We've seen cases like this before. Some people regain some speech, but many don't." A speech therapist named Janet started working with Sarah. She came every day. She was a kind woman with short gray hair and a patient smile. She brought cards with pictures on them. She asked Sarah to point to different objects. She tried to get Sarah to make simple sounds. Tom would sit in the corner of the room and watch. He saw how hard Sarah tried. Her face would scrunch up with effort. Her mouth would move, trying to form words. Sometimes she would get so frustrated that she would cry. Other times she would get angry and push the cards away. "It's okay to be frustrated," Janet would say gently. "This is hard, but we're going to keep trying." After a week of therapy, Sarah could make a few sounds on purpose. She could say ah and but that was all. No words, no sentences. Tom tried to stay positive. He talked to Sarah constantly, telling her about the ranch, about the cattle, about the weather. He told her that her students at school missed her. The principal had sent a card signed by every single child in the school. Tom read every message to Sarah and she cried. Sarah's parents visited often. Her mother would sit by her bed and hold her hand. "It's going to be okay, sweetheart," she would say. But Tom could see the worry in her eyes. Her father tried to make jokes to cheer Sarah up, but his voice always sounded too loud, too forced. Tom's mother came every Sunday with homemade food. She would sit with Sarah so Tom could go home, shower, and change clothes. But Tom never stayed away long. He always rushed back to the hospital. At night, when Sarah slept, Tom would sit in his chair and think about their life before the accident. He thought about how Sarah used to sing while she cooked dinner, how she would call him in the middle of the day just to tell him something funny a student had said, how she would read books out loud to him in the evenings. All of that was gone now. But then he would look at Sarah sleeping in the hospital bed and he would remind himself that she was alive. She was here. That was what mattered. After 6 weeks, Dr. Harrison said Sarah could go home. She was physically healthy enough. The broken ribs had healed. The fractured arm was healing well. She could walk with help. She could feed herself. She could do basic things. She'll need to continue speech therapy, Dr. Harrison said. Janet can come to your house 3 times a week, and Sarah will need help with daily activities for a while. Is there someone who can stay with her during the day while you're working? I'll hire someone, Tom said. Whatever she needs. There's one more thing, Dr. Harrison said. His voice was serious. Sarah is going to go through a lot of emotional challenges. She understands everything, but she can't express herself. That's incredibly frustrating. She might get depressed. She might get angry. You need to watch for signs of that. Tom nodded. I understand. The day they left the hospital, Tom pushed Sarah in a wheelchair to his truck. He helped her get in carefully. She moved slowly, still sore from her injuries. The drive home was quiet. Tom tried to make conversation, telling Sarah about what had been happening on the ranch. But Sarah just stared out the window. When they pulled up to their house, Tom saw Sarah's eyes fill with tears. This was her home. She had lived here for 12 years. But now she was coming back as a different person. Tom helped her out of the truck and into the house. He had prepared the guest bedroom downstairs for her. The stairs to their regular bedroom were too hard for her to manage yet. He had bought a special bed with railings and set up everything she might need. "I know it's not our room," Tom said, "but it's just temporary, until you get stronger." Sarah looked around the guest room. Then she looked at Tom and nodded. She tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. That first night home was strange. Tom made dinner, chicken soup that his mother had brought over. He helped Sarah to the kitchen table. They sat across from each other, just like they used to every night. But now there was no conversation. Sarah couldn't talk and Tom didn't know what to say. After dinner, Tom helped Sarah get ready for bed. She was exhausted. As he tucked her in, she grabbed his hand. She looked at him with such sadness in her eyes. Tom knew what she wanted to say. He could see it in her face. She wanted to tell him she was sorry. She wanted to tell him she loved him. She wanted to say so many things. "I know," Tom said softly. "I know, honey. I love you too." Sarah cried herself to sleep that night. Tom sat in a chair next to her bed, listening to her sob, feeling helpless. The next few weeks fell into a routine. Tom hired a woman named Maria to stay with Sarah during the day. Maria was a kind, middle-aged woman who had experience taking care of people with injuries. She would arrive at 8 in the morning and stay until 6 at night. Janet, the speech therapist, came on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. She worked with Sarah for an hour each time. They did exercises, they practiced sounds, they tried different techniques, but progress was slow. So slow that sometimes it felt like there was no progress at all. Tom would come in from working on the ranch and find Sarah sitting at the kitchen table with cards spread out in front of her. She would be trying to match words with pictures, trying to remember how to make the shapes with her mouth. She would look up at him with exhausted, frustrated eyes. "How did it go today?" Tom would ask. Sarah would shake her head. No progress. Tom and Sarah developed a system of communication. Sarah could nod for yes and shake her head for no. She could point to things she wanted. She learned to use simple gestures. If she was hungry, she would point to her mouth. If she was tired, she would point to her bedroom. But it wasn't enough. There were so many things Sarah wanted to say that couldn't be said with a nod or a point. Tom could see the frustration building in her every day. One evening, about a month after Sarah came home, Tom found her standing in the living room. She was staring at something. Tom followed her gaze and saw what she was looking at. The piano. It sat against the wall exactly where it had always been. Sarah used to play it every single evening before the accident. The piano had been her joy, her passion. She had spent hours at that piano, practicing, teaching, just playing for fun. Now it sat silent. Dust was starting to gather on its surface. Tom watched as Sarah walked slowly toward the piano. She moved carefully, still favoring her left side where the ribs had broken. She stopped in front of the piano and just stared at it. Then, very slowly, she reached out and touched the keys. She didn't press them. She just touched them with her fingertips like she was afraid they might break. Tom walked up behind her. "Do you want to try playing?" he asked gently. Sarah turned to look at him. Her eyes were full of tears. She shook her head violently. No. Then she walked away quickly, or as quickly as she could manage. Tom heard her bedroom door close. He stood there looking at the piano, feeling sad. Music had been such a huge part of Sarah's life. She had taught music for 10 years. She had played piano since she was 5 years old. And now she wouldn't even touch it. Tom asked Janet about it the next day. "Why won't she play? I thought music was different from speech in the brain." Janet sighed. "It is different. Music is processed in different areas of the brain than language. But Tom, think about what the piano meant to Sarah. It was connected to her voice. She would play and sing. She would teach children to play and talk to them about music. The piano reminds her of everything she's lost. So she might never play again?" Tom asked. "She might not want to," Janet said sadly. "The emotional connection to music might be too painful right now." Tom decided to respect Sarah's feelings. He stopped suggesting she play the piano. He stopped talking about music at all. He covered the piano with a sheet so Sarah wouldn't have to look at it. But he noticed that sometimes when Sarah thought he wasn't looking, she would stare at the covered piano with an expression he couldn't quite read. 3 months after the accident, Janet sat down with Tom and Sarah for a serious talk. "I think we need to adjust our expectations," she said carefully. Sarah has been working so hard and she's made some progress. She can make more sounds than she could before, but we're not seeing the improvement we hoped for. What does that mean? Tom asked, though he already knew. It means that Sarah's aphasia is severe. The damage to her brain is permanent. She may never regain the ability to speak in full sentences. She may never be able to have a normal conversation. Tom looked at Sarah. She was staring at the table, her hands folded in her lap. She had heard this. She understood every word. And she couldn't say anything about it. What about writing? Tom asked. Can she learn to write what she wants to say? We've tried that, Janet said. The same part of the brain that controls speech also controls writing. Sarah can't write words any better than she can speak them. Tom felt anger rising in him. So that's it? We just give up? We're not giving up, Janet said firmly. We'll keep working. We'll keep trying. But Tom, you and Sarah need to accept that this might be permanent. The sooner you accept it, the sooner you can both start to adapt. After Janet left, Tom sat with Sarah at the kitchen table. They didn't look at each other. Tom felt defeated. He knew Sarah felt even worse. I don't care, Tom finally said. I don't care if you never speak again. I'm just glad you're alive. We'll figure this out, okay? Sarah looked up at him. Tears were running down her face. She reached across the table and took his hand. She squeezed it tight. That night, Tom couldn't sleep. He lay in his bed upstairs thinking about Sarah alone in the guest room downstairs. He thought about how much their life had changed. He thought about how Sarah must feel, trapped in her own mind with no way to let her thoughts out. At around 2 a.m, Tom heard a sound. It was faint, but it woke him up. He lay there, listening. There it was again, a soft thud like something falling. Tom got out of bed and went downstairs. He walked quietly to Sarah's room and opened the door. The bed was empty. Sarah? He called out softly. He heard a noise from the living room. Tom walked in and stopped. Sarah was standing in front of the piano. She had pulled the sheet off. She was staring at the keys in the dim light coming through the window. Sarah? Tom said again. She turned to look at him. In the moonlight, he could see tears on her face. She pointed at the piano, then at herself. Then she shook her head helplessly. Tom understood. She wanted to play, but she was afraid. Afraid she wouldn't be able to. Afraid of failing at one more thing. Tom walked over to her. He took her hand. It's okay to be afraid, he said. But you don't have to be. It's just a piano. It's just music. You don't have to perform. You don't have to be perfect. You can just try. No pressure. Sarah looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked back at the piano. She reached out with one finger and pressed a single key. The note rang out in the quiet house. Middle C, clear and pure. Sarah pressed it again. Then she pulled her hand back quickly, like the piano had burned her. It's okay, Tom said. That was good. That was really good. But Sarah shook her head. She pointed to her bedroom. She wanted to go back to bed. Tom helped her back to her room. After he tucked her in, he went back to the living room. He stood in front of the piano for a long time thinking. Then he carefully put the sheet back over it. Maybe someday Sarah would be ready to play again. But that day wasn't today. What Tom didn't know was that tomorrow, everything would change. Tom woke up the next morning feeling tired. He had not slept well after finding Sarah standing at the piano in the middle of the night. He kept thinking about the sad look on her face. He kept thinking about how she had touched one key and then pulled away like she was afraid. It was Saturday, so Tom didn't have to rush out to work. He got up slowly and made coffee. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Before the accident, Saturday mornings were full of sound. Sarah would be playing music while she made pancakes. She would be humming or singing. Sometimes she would make Tom dance with her in the kitchen while the pancakes cooked. Now the house was silent. Tom took his coffee and walked to the guest room. He knocked softly on the door. Sarah, you awake? He heard movement inside. Then the door opened. Sarah stood there in her pajamas, her hair messy from sleep. She looked tired. There were dark circles under her eyes. Tom wondered if she had slept any better than he had. Morning, Tom said. I made coffee. Want some? Sarah nodded and followed him to the kitchen. They sat at the table together, drinking their coffee in silence. Tom kept glancing at Sarah, trying to read her face. She seemed lost in thought, staring at her coffee mug. I was thinking, Tom said slowly, maybe we could do something fun today. We could drive into town, get lunch at that diner you like, or we could watch a movie. Whatever you want. Sarah shook her head. She pointed at herself and then made a motion like she was sleeping. You want to rest? Tom asked. Sarah nodded. Okay, Tom said, trying not to feel disappointed. He knew Sarah was still recovering. She got tired easily, and he knew she was probably depressed. Who wouldn't be after everything she had been through? After breakfast, Sarah went back to her room. Tom cleaned up the kitchen and then decided to go outside. He had some work to do on the ranch, and staying busy helped him not to worry so much. He spent the morning fixing a broken fence post. It was good, physical work that kept his mind occupied. But even while he worked, part of his mind was on Sarah. He worried about her being alone in the house. He worried that she was giving up. Around noon, Tom came back to the house for lunch. He made sandwiches and knocked on Sarah's door. Lunch is ready, he called. No answer. Sarah? Still no answer. Tom felt a spike of fear. He opened the door. The room was empty. The bed was made. Sarah? Tom called louder. He walked through the house, checking each room. Where was she? Then he heard it. A sound so faint he almost missed it. A musical note. A piano note. Tom walked quickly to the living room. He stopped in the doorway, afraid to move, afraid to breathe. Sarah was sitting at the piano. The sheet was on the floor. Her back was to him, but he could see her hands on the keys. As he watched, she pressed one key, then another. Then another. She was playing. Actually playing. Tom didn't say anything. He didn't want to break whatever spell had brought Sarah to the piano. He just stood there and listened. At first, Sarah played single notes one at a time. They didn't form a melody. It seemed like she was just testing the piano, remembering what each key sounded like. But then slowly she started to put notes together. Tom recognized the melody. It was Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, the simplest song. The first song Sarah taught all her beginner students. She played it slowly, carefully with just her right hand. When she finished, she stopped. She sat very still, her hands hovering over the keys. Then she started to play again. This time it was Mary Had a Little Lamb, another simple song. But Sarah played it all the way through without stopping. Tom felt tears in his eyes. He wanted to run over and hug her, but he stayed where he was. He didn't want to interrupt. Sarah played a few more simple songs. Each one was a song she had taught to children. Each one brought back memories of her classroom, her students, her life before the accident. Then Sarah's hands paused over the keys. Tom saw her take a deep breath. And then she began to play something different. It was Clair de Lune by Debussy. A beautiful, complex piece that Sarah had played hundreds of times before the accident. It was one of her favorites. Her left hand joined her right hand. Both hands moved across the keys, and suddenly the living room filled with music. Real music. Not simple children's songs, but a masterpiece. Tom couldn't believe what he was hearing. Sarah was playing like she used to play. Her hands remembered the notes. Her fingers knew where to go. She made a few mistakes, hit a wrong key here and there, but she kept playing. The melody flowed through the house like water, washing away months of silence. Tom felt like he could breathe again for the first time since the accident. This was Sarah. This was his wife. She was still in there behind the silence and the frustration. She was still the woman who loved music more than almost anything. When the last notes of Clair de Lune faded away, Sarah sat completely still. Then her shoulders started to shake. She was crying. Tom went to her. He knelt beside the piano bench and put his arms around her. Sarah turned and buried her face in his shoulder, sobbing. That was beautiful, Tom whispered. That was so beautiful, Sarah. Sarah pulled back and looked at him. Her face was wet with tears, but Tom saw something in her eyes that had been missing for months. Hope, surprise, maybe even joy. She looked down at her hands like she couldn't believe what they had just done. Then she looked back at the piano. She reached out and touched the keys again, softly, gently. You can still play, Tom said. The music is still in you, Sarah nodded. Then she pointed to her head and then to the piano. Tom understood. The music was in her mind and her hands could still bring it out even if her voice couldn't. Do you want to play more? Tom asked. Sarah looked uncertain. She seemed tired, overwhelmed by emotion. But she also seemed like she didn't want to leave the piano. How about I make us some lunch and then if you want to play more you can? Tom suggested. No pressure. Just do whatever feels right, Sarah nodded. She wiped her tears and stood up from the piano bench. But Tom noticed she kept looking back at the piano as they walked to the kitchen. They ate lunch together. Tom could see that Sarah was thinking hard about something. She kept opening her mouth like she wanted to say something, then closing it again, frustrated. Finally, she grabbed a napkin and a pen. She tried to write something. The pen moved across the napkin, but what came out wasn't words. It was just scribbles and lines that didn't form letters. Sarah made a frustrated sound and crumpled the napkin. "It's okay," Tom said. "You don't need to write. I know what you want to say. You want to talk about the piano." Sarah nodded, relief on her face. "I think it's amazing that you can still play," Tom said. "I know the doctor said that music and language are in different parts of the brain. I guess your hands remember music even if—" He trailed off, not wanting to say the words. "Even if your voice doesn't remember words." But Sarah nodded. She understood. After lunch, Sarah went back to the piano. Tom sat in his favorite chair and pretended to read a book. But really, he was just listening to her play. She played for an hour, running through pieces she had known for years. Some of them she played perfectly. Some of them she struggled with, having to start over several times. But she kept playing. When she finally stopped, her hands were tired. She had not played the piano in almost 4 months. Her muscles weren't used to it anymore. Tom made dinner while Sarah rested on the couch. He kept thinking about what had happened today. Sarah could play the piano. That meant something, didn't it? If her hands could remember music, maybe there was a way to use that to help her communicate. That night, after Sarah went to bed, Tom got on his computer. He started searching for information about music and brain injuries. He read about something called music therapy. He read about how music uses different parts of the brain than speech. He read story after story about people with brain injuries who lost the ability to speak, but could still sing or play instruments. Tom found a video of a man who had a stroke. The man couldn't speak at all, not a single word. But when someone played music he knew, he could sing along. Every single word of the song came out perfectly when he sang, even though he couldn't say those same words when he spoke. Tom watched the video 3 times. His mind was racing. If that man could sing, maybe Sarah could too. And if she couldn't sing, maybe there was still some way music could help her. The next morning was Sunday. Tom called Janet, the speech therapist, even though he knew she didn't work on Sundays. "Tom, is everything okay?" Janet answered, sounding worried. "Yes, everything is fine." "Better than fine, actually. Sarah played the piano yesterday." "She did? That's wonderful." "I know. And I've been thinking. I've been reading about music therapy. Do you know anything about that?" "A little," Janet said. "It's not really my specialty, but I know there are therapists who work specifically with music and brain injuries." "Do you think it could help Sarah?" Tom asked. "It might," Janet said carefully. "Music does use different neural pathways than speech. But Tom, I don't want you to get your hopes up too high. Just because Sarah can play piano doesn't mean she'll be able to speak." "I know," Tom said, "but it's something. It's the first real hope we've had in months." "Let me make some calls," Janet said. "I know a music therapist in the city. Her name is Dr. Rebecca Chen. She works with brain injury patients. Let me see if she's available to come out to Cedar Valley." "Thank you," Tom said. "Thank you so much." After he hung up, Tom went to find Sarah. She was already at the piano playing scales. Just simple scales up and down the keys, but she looked focused and determined. "Janet is going to find us a music therapist," Tom told her. "Someone who specializes in using music to help people with brain injuries." Sarah stopped playing and turned to look at him. She looked hopeful but also scared. "I know you're scared," Tom said. "But you played yesterday. You really played. That has to mean something." Sarah nodded slowly. Then she turned back to the piano and kept practicing her scales. Over the next week, Sarah played the piano every day, sometimes for just 30 minutes, sometimes for hours. Tom could see her getting stronger, more confident. She started to remember more complex pieces. She played Mozart and Beethoven and Chopin. The house was filled with music again, and it made everything feel a little less dark. Janet called back on Wednesday. "I talked to Dr. Chen. She's very interested in Sarah's case. She can come out this Saturday if that works for you." "Yes," Tom said immediately. "That works perfectly." Saturday morning, Tom was nervous. Sarah was nervous too. She had changed her clothes 3 times and kept running her hands through her hair. Tom could tell she was anxious about meeting this new therapist. Dr. Chen arrived at 10 o'clock. She was a small woman, probably in her 40s, with short black hair and kind eyes. She carried a large bag and smiled warmly when Tom opened the door. "Mr. Mitchell? I'm Dr. Rebecca Chen. You can call me Rebecca." "Tom," he said, shaking her hand. "Please come in. Sarah is in the living room." They walked into the living room. Sarah was sitting on the couch, her hands folded in her lap. She looked up when they entered, her eyes wide and nervous. "Sarah, it's so good to meet you," Rebecca said. She didn't talk to Sarah like she was a child or like she was stupid. She talked to her like a normal person. Tom appreciated that. Sarah nodded but didn't try to make any sounds. Rebecca sat down in a chair across from Sarah. "Tom told me you've been playing piano." "That's wonderful. How long have you been playing?" Sarah held up her fingers. 3 fingers, then 0. 30 years. 30 years? Wow, that's a long time. And you were a music teacher? Sarah nodded. "I work with people who have had brain injuries," Rebecca said. "A lot of them have aphasia like you. And I've found that music can be a really powerful tool. The brain is amazing. When one part gets damaged, sometimes other parts can help out. Music uses a lot of different parts of the brain, so even when someone can't speak, they might be able to communicate through music." Sarah was listening intently. Tom could see the hope growing in her eyes. "Would you play something for me?" Rebecca asked. "Anything you want." Sarah looked at Tom. He nodded encouragingly. Sarah stood up and walked to the piano. She sat down, took a deep breath, and began to play. She chose Für Elise by Beethoven. It was a piece she had played 1,000 times. Her fingers moved across the keys with grace and confidence. When she finished, she turned to look at Rebecca. Rebecca was smiling. "That was beautiful, Sarah, really beautiful. And you didn't have to think about it, did you? Your hands just knew what to do." Sarah nodded. "That's called muscle memory," Rebecca explained. "Your hands remember the music so well that you don't have to think about each note. It's automatic. And that's good news because it means we can work with that." "What does that mean?" Tom asked. "What can you do?" Rebecca pulled some papers out of her bag. "There are different techniques we can try. Some people with aphasia can sing even though they can't speak. We call it melodic intonation therapy. We can try that. We can also work on using music as a communication tool, and sometimes working with music can actually help rebuild some of the damaged language pathways in the brain." "So she might be able to speak again?" Tom asked, trying not to sound too hopeful. "I can't make any promises," Rebecca said honestly. "Every brain injury is different, but I've seen some remarkable things happen with music therapy. At the very least, we can help Sarah express herself through music. At best, we might be able to help her regain some speech." Sarah's eyes were shining with tears. She looked at Tom, and he could see the question in her eyes. "Should we try?" "Yes," Tom said, answering her unspoken question. "We should absolutely try." Rebecca smiled. "Great, let's get started." Dr. Rebecca Chen started working with Sarah that same day. She didn't waste any time. She pulled a small keyboard out of her bag and set it on the coffee table. "This is going to be our communication board," Rebecca explained. "Sarah, I want you to try something. When I ask you a question, instead of nodding or shaking your head, I want you to play 1 note for yes and 2 notes for no. Can you do that?" Sarah looked uncertain, but she nodded. Then she seemed to catch herself and smiled a little. She reached out and played 1 note on the keyboard. "Perfect," Rebecca said, grinning. "You're already getting it. Okay, let me ask you some questions. Are you comfortable?" Sarah played 1 note, yes. "Are you nervous about this therapy?" Sarah paused, then played 2 notes. "No." But Tom could see from her face that she was lying. She was nervous. Rebecca seemed to see it too. "It's okay to be nervous," Rebecca said gently. "This is all new, but we're going to take it slow. Now, let me ask you something else. Do you like chocolate?" Sarah played 1 note and smiled. "Yes." "Do you like country music?" 1 note, yes. "Do you like doing laundry?" Sarah actually laughed, a silent laugh, and played 2 notes emphatically. "No." Tom felt his heart swell. It was such a small thing, but Sarah was communicating, really communicating, and she was smiling while doing it. Rebecca spent the next hour teaching Sarah different ways to use music to communicate. She showed her how to play different scales to represent different feelings. A major scale meant she was happy. A minor scale meant she was sad. Fast notes meant she was excited or frustrated. Slow notes meant she was calm or tired. Then Rebecca had Sarah play little snippets of songs she knew to communicate ideas. When Rebecca asked what Sarah wanted for lunch, Sarah played a few notes from Old MacDonald Had a Farm. You want something from the farm? Rebecca guessed. Eggs? Chicken? Sarah shook her head and played the same notes again. Tom suddenly understood. She wants a hamburger. Beef. From a farm. Sarah nodded enthusiastically and played one note. Yes. Rebecca laughed. That's creative. I like it. This is going to work, Sarah. You just need to build up your musical vocabulary. Over the next few weeks, Rebecca came to the house 3 times a week. Each session lasted about 2 hours. Sarah worked hard, practicing all the techniques Rebecca taught her. Tom would come in from working on the ranch to find Sarah at the piano, playing different scales and melodies, making notes in a special book Rebecca had given her. The book couldn't have written words since Sarah couldn't write. Instead, Sarah drew pictures next to musical notes. A picture of food next to certain notes meant she was hungry. A picture of a bed meant she was tired. A picture of a happy face meant she was feeling good. Slowly, Sarah built a whole system of communication using music. It wasn't perfect, and it took time for Tom to understand what she was saying. But it was so much better than just nodding and pointing. One evening, Sarah played a melody that Tom didn't recognize. It was pretty but strange. He couldn't figure out what she was trying to say. I don't understand, Tom admitted. Sarah looked frustrated. She played it again, slower this time. Tom still didn't get it. Can you play a song I know? Something that will help me understand? Sarah thought for a moment, then played a few notes from You Are My Sunshine. Sunshine? Tom guessed. Light? The sun? Sarah shook her head. She played it again and pointed at Tom. Me? Tom asked, confused. Sarah nodded. Then she played a sad, slow melody and pointed at herself. You're sad, Tom said. And I'm your sunshine? Sarah nodded, tears forming in her eyes. She played one note, yes. Tom went to her and hugged her tight. You're my sunshine too, he whispered. Always. After about a month of music therapy, Rebecca introduced a new technique. It was called melodic intonation therapy. This is where we try to help you actually speak, Rebecca explained to Sarah. Some people with aphasia can sing words even though they can't say them. We're going to try singing simple phrases to a melody. Your brain might be able to access language through music in a way it can't through regular speech, Rebecca demonstrated. She sang a simple phrase to a basic melody. I want water. She sang it slowly, each word on a different note. Now you try, Rebecca said to Sarah. Sing it with me. Sarah looked terrified, but she took a deep breath. Rebecca sang the phrase again, and Sarah tried to sing along. What came out was not exactly words. It was more like humming with her mouth trying to form shapes, but Tom could almost hear the phrase in there. Good, Rebecca said. That's really good for a first try. Let's try again. They practiced the same phrase over and over. Each time Sarah got a little closer to actually forming the words. By the end of the session, when Sarah sang, Tom could definitely hear I want, even if water was still just a sound. Rebecca was excited. This is promising, Sarah, really promising. Your brain is trying to make the connection between the melody and the words. We're going to keep working on this. Sarah worked on melodic intonation every day. She would sit at the piano and sing simple phrases to simple melodies. I am hungry. I am tired. I love you. Over and over again, practicing until her throat hurt. Progress was slow. Some days Sarah could almost say the words clearly. Other days they came out as just sounds. It was frustrating for her. Tom could see her getting upset when she couldn't make her mouth do what her brain wanted. It's okay, Tom would tell her. You're doing so well. You're trying so hard. But some days Sarah would get so frustrated that she would stop playing altogether. She would just sit at the piano with her hands in her lap, crying silently. Those were the hard days. 2 months into music therapy, Janet came for a visit. She hadn't been working with Sarah much since Rebecca took over, but she wanted to see how Sarah was doing. Sarah demonstrated all her new skills. She played scales to show her emotions. She played snippets of songs to communicate ideas. And then, with Rebecca encouraging her, she sang a simple phrase. I am happy. The words were slurred and slow, but they were words. Real words coming from Sarah's mouth. Janet's eyes filled with tears. Sarah, that's incredible. I never thought. This is amazing. After Janet left, Rebecca sat down with Tom and Sarah for a serious talk. You've made remarkable progress, Rebecca said. I'm so proud of you, Sarah, but I want to be honest with you both. The melodic intonation is working to some degree, but it's going to have limits. Sarah, you may be able to sing simple phrases, but having a normal conversation is probably not going to happen. The damage to your brain is too extensive. Tom saw Sarah's face fall. He reached over and took her hand. But, Rebecca continued, I've been thinking about other ways music can help you communicate. Have you heard of songs with communication symbols? We could create a whole system where you play certain songs or melodies that represent complete thoughts. Like a musical language? Tom asked. Exactly, Rebecca said. Sarah already started doing this naturally. When she plays Home on the Range, you know she wants beef for dinner. We could expand on that. Create a whole vocabulary of songs and melodies that mean specific things. Over the next few weeks, Sarah and Rebecca built a musical dictionary. Sarah assigned songs to different people in her life. When she wanted to talk about Tom, she played You Are My Sunshine. When she wanted to talk about her mother, she played a lullaby her mother used to sing to her. When she wanted to talk about her students, she played Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. She assigned songs to activities. Take Me Out to the Ball Game meant she wanted to go somewhere. Rockabye Baby meant she wanted to sleep. Happy Birthday meant she wanted to celebrate something. She even created her own melodies for complex emotions and ideas. A particular sequence of notes meant she was worried. Another sequence meant she was grateful. Another meant she was thinking about the future. Tom had to learn this whole new language. Sometimes he got it wrong, and Sarah would have to play the melody again or choose a different song. But slowly they learned to communicate in a way that felt almost natural. One Saturday morning, about 3 months into music therapy, Tom woke up to the sound of piano music. He smiled. This was normal now. Sarah played every morning. But when he came downstairs, he found something unexpected. Sarah wasn't alone at the piano. There was a little girl sitting next to her on the bench. Tom recognized the girl. It was Emma, one of Sarah's former students. Her mother was standing nearby, looking uncertain. I'm sorry to just show up, Emma's mother said to Tom. Emma has been asking to see Mrs. Mitchell for months. She misses her piano lessons so much. I tried to find another teacher, but Emma said nobody teaches like Mrs. Mitchell. I thought maybe, I don't know what I thought. Maybe this was a bad idea. Tom looked at Sarah. She was staring at Emma with tears in her eyes. Emma was looking up at Sarah with a big smile. Mrs. Mitchell, can you play something for me? Emma asked. Please? Sarah wiped her eyes and nodded. She started to play Mary Had a Little Lamb, the song she had been teaching Emma before the accident. Emma's face lit up. I remember that one. I can play it now. Want to hear? Sarah nodded. Emma put her small hands on the piano keys and played the song. She made a few mistakes, but she played it all the way through. When she finished, Emma looked at Sarah. Did I do good? Sarah couldn't say yes, but she could show it. She played a big, happy chord on the piano and then played the beginning of Happy Birthday. That was her way of saying celebration. Good job. Wonderful. Emma giggled. Thanks, Mrs. Mitchell. I've been practicing. Tom watched as Sarah and Emma sat at the piano together. Sarah would play a song and Emma would try to copy it. When Emma got it right, Sarah would play her happy celebration chord. When Emma made a mistake, Sarah would gently replay the part she got wrong. They weren't talking with words, but they were communicating perfectly. Emma's mother watched with tears in her eyes. I haven't seen Emma this happy in months, she whispered to Tom. After Emma and her mother left, Sarah sat at the piano for a long time, just staring at the keys. Tom could see she was thinking hard about something. That night, Sarah played a melody that Tom had never heard before. It was beautiful and sad and hopeful all at once. She played it several times like she was trying to perfect it. Is that a new song? Tom asked. Sarah shook her head. She pointed to her heart, then to her head, then to the piano. Tom understood. You wrote it? You composed it yourself? Sarah played one note. Yes. What's it about? Tom asked. Sarah thought for a moment. Then she played You Are My Sunshine for Tom, then a lullaby for her mother, then Twinkle, Twinkle for her students. Then she played her new melody again. It's about everyone you love? Tom guessed. Sarah shook her head. She played the melody again and pointed to herself. Tom suddenly understood. It's about you. It's your song. Your voice. Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. She had found a way to express herself that didn't need words. She had found her voice again. It just sounded like music instead of talking. Tom hugged her tight. It's beautiful, he said. You're beautiful, and I'm so proud of you. Sarah pulled back and looked at him. She took a deep breath, and Tom could see her gathering courage. Then she sang slowly and carefully to a simple melody. I love you, Tom. The words were slurred. They were slow. They were sung instead of spoken, but they were clear. They were real. Tom started crying. I love you too, Sarah, so much. Sarah smiled through her tears. Then she turned back to the piano and played her song again. Her own personal melody. The song that was her voice. 6 months had passed since Sarah first returned to the piano. It was spring now, and the ranch was coming back to life after the long winter. Flowers were blooming in the garden that Sarah used to tend. The cattle had new calves. Everything felt new and fresh and full of possibility. Sarah had changed a lot in those 6 months. She was stronger now, both physically and emotionally. She walked without help. Her broken arm had healed completely. She spent hours every day at the piano, playing, practicing, communicating. Her speech had improved, but only a little. She could sing simple phrases to melodies. Good morning. Thank you. I love you. But having a real conversation with spoken words was still impossible. The doctors had been right about that. The damage to her brain was permanent, but Sarah had stopped feeling sorry for herself. She had found a new way to live, a new way to be herself. Music was her language now, and she was fluent in it. Dr. Rebecca Chen still came to visit once a week, but now it was more like a friendship than therapy. They would sit at the piano together, trying new techniques, creating new musical phrases for Sarah's vocabulary. One day, Rebecca brought up an idea that she had been thinking about for a while. Sarah, I've been working with brain injury patients for 15 years, Rebecca said, and I've never seen anyone make the kind of progress you've made. Your case is remarkable. I think other therapists and doctors could learn from your story. Sarah looked uncertain. She played a questioning melody. I want to write about your case for a medical journal, Rebecca explained, and I want to present your story at a conference for music therapists. Would that be okay with you? Sarah looked at Tom. He could see the question in her eyes. What do you think? I think it's wonderful, Tom said. Your story could help other people who lost their ability to speak. You could show them that there's still hope. Sarah thought about this for a long moment. Then she played a melody that meant she was worried, followed by a few notes from Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Rebecca understood. You're worried about your students? About them knowing what happened to you? Sarah nodded. The students at the elementary school already know you had an accident, Tom said gently. Emma told all her friends. They miss you, Sarah. They ask about you all the time. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She had been avoiding thinking about her students. It hurt too much to remember her old classroom, her old life. But now, 6 months later, maybe she was ready to face it. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. Tom heard her get up and go to the living room. He followed and found her sitting at the piano playing soft, quiet melodies in the dark. Can't sleep? Tom asked. Sarah shook her head. Then she played a complex melody, one Tom didn't recognize yet. I don't know that one, Tom admitted. Sarah played a few notes from Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, then played a melody that meant teaching. Then played a sad song. You miss teaching? Tom guessed. Sarah played one note. Yes. Then she played her worried melody. You're worried that you can't teach anymore, Tom said. It wasn't a question. Sarah nodded. More tears fell down her face. Tom sat down next to her on the piano bench. Emma came to see you. You taught her a song without saying a single word. You communicated with her perfectly. Maybe you could teach differently than you used to, but you could still teach. Sarah looked at him like she wanted to believe it, but couldn't quite let herself hope. Think about it, Tom said. You don't have to decide anything now. Just think about it. Over the next few weeks, more of Sarah's former students came to visit. Word had spread that Mrs. Mitchell was feeling better and could play piano again. The children would sit at the piano with Sarah, and she would teach them songs. She couldn't give them verbal instructions, but she would play a melody and they would copy her. When they made mistakes, she would replay the correct notes. When they got it right, she would play her happy celebration chord. The children didn't care that she couldn't talk. They were just happy to learn music from her again. One day, the principal from Cedar Valley Elementary School came to visit. Her name was Mrs. Anderson, and she had been Sarah's boss for 10 years. "Sarah, it's so good to see you," Mrs. Anderson said, hugging her. "You look wonderful." Sarah smiled and played a welcoming melody on the piano. Mrs. Anderson looked at Tom. "I heard that she's been teaching some of her old students here at your house?" "Yes," Tom said, "just informally. They come to visit and she plays with them." Mrs. Anderson turned to Sarah. "I have a proposition for you. I know you can't come back to your old job. But what if you came back part-time? Just a few hours a week. You could teach small group piano lessons. The children miss you so much, Sarah. And from what I hear, you're still an amazing teacher." Sarah's eyes went wide. She looked at Tom, then back at Mrs. Anderson. She played her worried melody. "I know you're worried," Mrs. Anderson said, "but we would make accommodations. You could teach in your own way. Use music to communicate with the students. We have a parent volunteer who used to be a teacher. She said she would be happy to assist you in the classroom." Sarah played a questioning melody. 2 days a week, Mrs. Anderson said. Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. Just 2 hours each day. Small groups, only 3 or 4 students at a time. What do you think? Sarah looked at Tom. He could see fear in her eyes, but also excitement, maybe even hope. "I think you should try it," Tom said. "You're an amazing teacher, Sarah. Just because you teach differently now doesn't mean you can't teach." Sarah sat very still for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. Mrs. Anderson smiled. "Wonderful. We'll start in 2 weeks. That will give you time to prepare." After Mrs. Anderson left, Sarah sat at the piano and played for hours. Tom could tell she was nervous and excited and scared all at once. She played happy songs and worried songs and hopeful songs, all her emotions pouring out through the music. The next 2 weeks passed quickly. Rebecca helped Sarah prepare for teaching. They created special hand signals Sarah could use with students. They made a chart with musical notes that meant different things. "Good job" was a major chord. "Try again" was a gentle minor chord. "Watch me" was a quick scale. On Tuesday afternoon, Sarah's first day back at school, Tom drove her to the elementary school. Sarah was wearing a nice dress and had spent an hour fixing her hair. Tom could see her hands shaking as they pulled into the parking lot. "You're going to be great," Tom said. "Those kids love you." Sarah played a worried melody on a small keyboard Rebecca had given her to carry around. "I know you're scared," Tom said, "but you can do this." Sarah took a deep breath and nodded. They walked into the school together. The hallway smelled like crayons and paper and lunch. Everything looked exactly the same as it had before the accident. Mrs. Anderson met them at the door. "Sarah, welcome back. Your classroom is ready. I have 4 students for your first lesson today." She led them to the music room. It looked different than Sarah remembered. There was a special table with pictures and symbols on it to help Sarah communicate. There was a chart on the wall showing musical notes and what they meant. And sitting at the piano bench were 4 children, all looking excited and nervous. Tom recognized Emma. The other 3 children were around the same age, maybe 7 or 8 years old. "Mrs. Mitchell is going to teach you today," Mrs. Anderson told the children. "She can't talk like she used to, but she can teach you music. You need to watch her carefully and listen to the piano." "Okay? Okay," the children said together. Tom gave Sarah's hand a squeeze. "I'll be back in 2 hours. You've got this." Sarah looked terrified, but she nodded. Tom left and Sarah turned to face her students. The children stared at her. Sarah stared back. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Emma spoke up. "Mrs. Mitchell, will you play us a song?" Sarah felt relief wash over her. This she could do. She sat down at the piano and played "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star." "I know that one," one of the little boys said. "Can we play it too?" Sarah nodded. She gestured for the children to come to the piano. One by one, she showed them the notes. She would play a note, then point to the child, and they would play the same note. When they got it right, Sarah played her happy chord, and the child would beam with pride. Slowly, carefully, Sarah taught all 4 children the simple song. It took the whole hour, but by the end they could all play "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star" with 2 hands. That was fun. Emma said, "Can we come back on Thursday?" Sarah nodded and played her happy chord. When Tom came to pick Sarah up, she practically ran to the truck. As soon as they were alone, she started crying. But Tom could tell these were happy tears. "How did it go?" he asked. Sarah sang to a melody. "Very good," Tom grinned. "I knew you could do it." Sarah taught every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon after that. Sometimes the lessons went smoothly. Sometimes they were challenging. Some children learned quickly. Some children got frustrated when they couldn't understand what Sarah was trying to tell them. But Sarah loved it. She loved being back in a classroom. She loved teaching music to children. She loved having a purpose again. One day, about 3 months after Sarah started teaching again, Dr. Rebecca Chen brought a special visitor to the house. It was another doctor, a neurologist from the city. "This is Dr. James Harrison," Rebecca introduced him. "He's one of the leading experts on aphasia in the country, .ol." "This is extraordinary," Dr. Harrison said. "I've studied aphasia for 30 years and I've never seen anything quite like this. Sarah, your brain has created entirely new pathways. The parts of your brain that used to control speech are still damaged. They probably always will be, but your brain has found a way to route language through your musical centers." "What does that mean?" Tom asked. "It means that when Sarah plays the piano, she's not just making music. She's actually using music as language. Her brain has rewired itself to process communication through melody and rhythm instead of through words." "So she's using a different part of her brain to talk?" Tom asked. "Exactly," Dr. Harrison said. "It's called neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to adapt and change. Most people with aphasia this severe never regain any ability to communicate. But Sarah found a way. She taught her brain to speak a new language. Music." Sarah was listening carefully. She played a questioning melody. Rebecca understood. "You want to know if you'll ever speak normally again?" Sarah nodded. Dr. Harrison's expression was kind but honest. "Probably not, Sarah. The damage to the language centers is permanent. But you've created something just as valuable. You've created your own language. And from what I understand, you're even teaching children with it. That's remarkable." Sarah nodded slowly. She had known this deep down. But hearing it from an expert made it real. That night, Tom found Sarah sitting in front of the piano just staring at the keys. She wasn't playing. She was just thinking. "You okay?" Tom asked. Sarah turned to look at him. Tears were running down her face. She shook her head no. Tom sat down next to her. "Talk to me." "Well, you know what I mean. Tell me what you're feeling." Sarah's hands moved to the piano keys. She played a sad, slow melody. Then she played harsh, angry chords. Then soft, resigned notes. Her music showed everything she was feeling. Sadness, anger, acceptance, grief for what she had lost. Gratitude for what she had found. When she finished, she looked at Tom and sang to a simple melody, "I miss my voice." Tom's heart broke. "I know," he whispered. "I know you do." Sarah played more music. A melody that meant frustration, followed by notes that meant hope, followed by sounds that meant confusion. "You don't know how to feel," Tom said. "You're grateful for the progress you've made, but you're still sad about what you lost." Sarah played one note. "Yes." "That's okay," Tom said. "You can feel both things. You can be sad and grateful at the same time. You can miss your old voice and still be proud of your new one." Sarah leaned her head on Tom's shoulder and cried. Tom held her and let her cry. Some pain didn't go away. You just learned to live with it. After a while, Sarah sat up and wiped her tears. She played a determined melody, then started playing a song Tom recognized. It was Amazing Grace when Tom understood. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. Sarah was thinking about the amazing grace it took to survive what she had been through. The grace to find a new way to live. The grace to keep going even when things were hard. When she finished the song, Sarah turned to Tom and sang slowly, "Thank you for staying." "I'll always stay," Tom said. "Always." 1 year after the accident, the school held a spring recital. It was a tradition that Sarah had started when she first became a music teacher. Every spring, all her students would perform in front of their families. This year, Mrs. Anderson asked Sarah if she wanted to help organize the recital. Sarah was nervous about it, but she agreed. For weeks, Sarah worked with her students, preparing them for the recital. She taught them songs. She helped them practice. She couldn't give them verbal instructions, but she didn't need to. The music said everything. On the night of the recital, the elementary school auditorium was packed with parents and families. Tom sat in the front row, nervous and proud. The children performed beautifully. Emma played Mary Had a Little Lamb perfectly. Other students played songs they had learned from Sarah. Some made mistakes, but they kept playing just like Sarah had taught them. At the end of the recital, Mrs. Anderson stood up and walked to the microphone. "Before we finish tonight, I want to say something about Mrs. Mitchell," she said. "A year ago, she was in a terrible accident. The doctors said she might never wake up. But she did. The doctors said she would never communicate again. But she found a way. She couldn't speak with words, but she could speak with music. And she taught herself to teach in a whole new way." Tom saw Sarah sitting at the side of the stage, looking uncomfortable with the attention. "Mrs. Mitchell showed all of us something important this year," Mrs. Anderson continued. "She showed us that when one door closes, another one opens. She showed us that there's always a way to do what you love, even if you have to do it differently than you planned. And she showed these children that music is more than just notes on a page. Music is a language. Music is communication. Music is love." The audience started clapping. It started as polite applause, but grew louder and louder until everyone was standing, giving Sarah a standing ovation. Sarah stood up, tears streaming down her face. She walked to the piano on the stage and sat down. The audience grew quiet. Sarah began to play. She played the melody she had composed months ago. Her own personal song, the one that was her voice. It was beautiful and sad and hopeful all at once. When she finished, she stood and faced the audience. She took a deep breath and then she sang, slowly and carefully, to a simple melody. "Thank you for believing in me." The words were slow. They were sung instead of spoken. But everyone in the auditorium heard them. And everyone understood. The applause was deafening. After the recital, parents came up to Sarah to thank her. They hugged her. They told her how much their children loved her. They told her she was an inspiration. One mother, with tears in her eyes, told Sarah, "My daughter has struggled to learn anything, but you taught her. You found a way to reach her when no one else could. Thank you." Sarah couldn't say "you're welcome" with words, but she played it on a small keyboard she carried, a simple, beautiful melody that everyone understood. That night, when Tom and Sarah got home, they sat on the porch and looked at the stars. It was a beautiful spring night, warm and clear. "You did amazing tonight," Tom said. "I'm so proud of you." Sarah leaned against him and sang softly, "I'm proud too." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Sarah started humming, a new melody one Tom had never heard before. It was gentle and sweet and full of hope. "What's that one?" Tom asked. Sarah looked at him and smiled. Then she sang, "It's tomorrow. It's the future. It's us." Tom squeezed her hand. "I like the sound of that." 2 years after the accident, Dr. Rebecca Chen published a paper about Sarah's case in a major medical journal. It was titled "Melodic Language, a Case Study in Severe Aphasia Recovery Through Music Therapy." The paper was read by doctors and therapists all over the world. Rebecca started getting emails from other therapists who wanted to try her techniques with their own patients. She started getting invitations to speak at conferences, and every single time someone asked her about her most successful case, she talked about Sarah Mitchell, the music teacher from Wyoming who lost her voice but found it again in piano keys and melodies. Sarah continued teaching at the elementary school. She never went back to full-time work, but her part-time lessons were always full. Children loved learning from her. Parents requested her specifically. She also started doing something new. Once a month, she would drive to the rehabilitation center in the city and volunteer with brain injury patients. She would sit with people who had aphasia, people who couldn't speak, people who felt like their lives were over, and she would show them her piano. She would show them her musical language. She would show them that there was hope, that life could be different than it was before, but it could still be beautiful. Many of the patients she worked with made progress. Not all of them, but some. Some learned to communicate with music like Sarah did. Some regained small amounts of speech. All of them felt less alone because Sarah was there, showing them it was possible to live a good life even when things didn't turn out the way you planned. Tom watched his wife become stronger and more confident every day. She would never be exactly the same person she was before the accident. But in some ways, she was even better. She was more patient, more compassionate, more determined. She had faced the worst thing that could happen and had survived. That made her brave in a way she had never been before. Their house was always full of music now. Sarah played the piano every single day, sometimes for hours. The melodies floated through the rooms, out the windows, across the ranch. It was the sound of hope, the sound of healing, the sound of love. 5 years after the accident on a warm summer evening, Tom and Sarah sat on their porch watching the sunset. Sarah had her small keyboard with her like always. "Do you ever think about what the doctor said?" Tom asked. "That you might never wake up? That you would never communicate again?" Sarah nodded. She played a melody that meant remembering, followed by notes that meant grateful. "I think about it too," Tom said. "I think about how close we came to losing everything. And I think about how lucky we are." Sarah turned to look at him. She set down her keyboard and took both of his hands in hers. Then she sang, slowly and clearly, the words she had practiced for this exact moment.